Who would have thought, right? So Charlotte Harbor Environmental Center has been around for 35 plus years. Founded in 1987. I assume this is what the world looked like back then. Maybe some of you guys can tell me. I was born in '84. That's just a joke. So it's kind of a unique organization, and that I can promise you there won't ever be another one like it, because you got the county, the city, Audubon, and the school district all to work together to create something beautiful. That won't ever happen again, because anytime you ask one of them for something, they all point at each other like this. But there was one time back in 1987 when everything worked out and people could compromise and people from all across the county could work together for the benefit of the citizens that live there. And that's how we got CHEC. So that one magical moment is all I need. What is CHEC? Well, we're a giant preserve and an environmental park. And when people ask me, what is an environmental center? I tell them, well, it's a lot of things. One, we teach earth science, right? So it's been a while since I've been in an earth science class in school, but here's some of the things that we would go over there. How things work. It's the science of the world, the science of our environment. So there's about 1 million really super interesting things that you can put under the umbrella of earth science. Fire is always a big hit with little kids. They think that that's fantastic. Geology, I think that's super interesting. Most of us only teach about what's above the ground. But actually there's way more biologic life in an acre of underground than there is in an acre above ground. So there's a whole hidden world down there. That's quite fascinating. And I would hope that some of you guys will kind of show interest in these areas, because adding little bits of each of these helps to make for a really well polished presentation, right? If you're going to talk about the environment, to include some of these different subjects is a great way to really draw people in and teach them something that maybe they haven't heard before. So here's us talking about the formation of the universe. As you know, it's a cosmic turtle. We're not going to address that. We're just going to move along. It's run by the universal material. These are space ice creams that I assume run everything. I don't have proof, but we're not going to talk about it. Here is lightning, which is, of course, created by pan-dimensional babies pressing against the membrane between realities. This is important. Have a sense of humor, guys. When you're teaching people, a lot of people are going to have different perspectives, different ideologies, but one thing that gets through to everyone is if we don't take ourselves too seriously. Okay, ultimately, we do want to teach people about the environment, but we want to have a good time. We want to satisfy that innate curiosity that they have. Okay, so do pan-dimensional babies cause lightning? I don't know.
Yes.
Here's some of the programs that we have. Guided hikes, wading trips, kayak tours, you can read the rest. You have to reach people a lot of different ways. Not everyone loves to learn about the environment the same way. Some people think that walking through the woods is just sweaty. So you gotta find a way to reach them where they are, okay? So find something that's gonna be appealing to them. So we do that with a myriad of different things, from events, programs, night hikes, all kinds of things, but always trying to look for a new way to approach the environment, because we feel like that's the best way to engage them. It's not enough for them to go out into the woods and see that it's pretty. They have to have a meaningful interaction. A meaningful interaction for me is different than a meaningful interaction for you. It's definitely different for our fourth graders that come out from the school, or the second graders that go out on our wading trips. For each of them, it's something different. It might be touching their first starfish. That's kind of an aha moment. It might be having a net and pulling up a little pipefish and being like, oh, what is that? That curiosity, trying to understand how something can live in the water, that they've been in the water, they've been at the beach, they had no idea those things were swimming around with them, right? So it's different for everybody, and it takes a lot of different methodologies to kind of reach them. So at CHEC, we're advocating for conservation. So how do we do that? Well, we look for opportunities within our community. One of the things that Ashley's working on right now is the Burnt Store Road Coalition. We're trying to put signage up, we're trying to put animal underpasses, overpasses there to kind of prevent vehicle strikes. Well, this is something that's specific to our community right now, right? They expanded Burnt Store Road, they're putting in 5,000 houses, it's a lot. So we meet them where they are. We provide actionable information. We're recording data. We're giving them something that will urge them to action. Okay? And then you got to be quick about it. By the time you try to resolve something, it could already be 5 years in the future. There's something more pressing. I think of 3 years ago when all the manatees were starting. That was one of the most pressing environmental concerns. Now they're saying, oh, there's less manatees this year that have passed away than any year prior. Well, that's kind of misleading. Is there less deaths because there's less manatees? Yeah. Right? Okay, so it's interesting, but you gotta, when you find an opportunity, you gotta jump on it. So CHEC's nimble, and I appreciate that about our organization. We're small, but we're mighty. Okay, COVID-19. Sorry, I use this for a lot of things. I'm always talking about the most terrible things that happen. I can be a real depressing speaker. These are some of the things that are affecting our world. The 6th grade extinction. Last year we had 17 animals come off of the endangered species list. That's incredible, right? 17 animals. Unfortunately, they all died.
I was going to say.
Yeah. So they're all extinct now, and that's why they're off the list. We are in what many consider to be the 6th great extinction.
Wow.
Out in the Pacific, we have an island of garbage that's twice the size of Texas, and is about 3 times taller than the Eiffel Tower. It's a giant column of sludge. Right? So these are some of the things that are negatively impacting our world. The breadbasket that is the world. Anyone here read The Giving Tree? The world gives and gives and gives until there's nothing left. And the story of The Giving Tree is about a boy who falls in love with a little tree. And each time he comes back, he's sad, and the tree gives him something, whether it's his leaves, his fruits, and ultimately it's wood. Gives everything. Well, that's our planet Earth. It gives everything. So when we have all these negative things, I try to also come back with, right now, they're playing with a bacteria that can digest plastic. That's revolutionary. We've got more single-use plastic in the environment than we know what to do with. Tons and tons and tons are produced daily. Having a bacteria that could digest plastic would be a game changer. How about power? Has anyone heard anything interesting in the news recently about electricity, power, how it's generated, where it's generated? Because right now they're playing around with nuclear fusion. This is something that I could only imagine when I was a kid, and now they're actually producing power. So you're talking in the next 5 to 10 years, we don't know what the future of energy looks like, but it could be positive. So for every one of these black marks and blemishes on us for, not being great ambassadors of the environment, there's also incredible things that are right on the cusp of happening. So it's important that we look reality in the face, that we tell people the truth, right? This is how we motivate people to action. This is how we shake people from apathy, right? You can't sugarcoat everything. But I don't want to leave everyone feeling morose and despondent. We also have to come at them with hope. Here's why it can be better. Here's the opportunities that we have. And there's a lot of them, guys. I won't go into all of it today, but here's some of the solutions at CHEC. One, make it easy. So think about if we wanted people to use recycled bags when they were shopping at Publix, the easiest thing to do would be to give them out at the grocery line. If that was important to us, we would say, hey, we're going to give out 100,000 bags, and we would give them out right where they need them, right? So show them how and why. So this is a tough one. With my son, I show him because I am that weird dad that every time we go to a playground picks up all the garbage. So poor guy's sitting there on the swing, push me, Dad. What is that guy? Let me get this plastic bag. I can't help it. And I know that he probably thinks it's weird now, but show, don't tell. Later on in life, my young son, who's watched me pick up plastic bags going across the Publix parking lot, picking up bottles at the playground, is also going to be some weirdo that picks up garbage, and his friends are going to see it. So it's important that we actually show and demonstrate these things. A lot of times that's the most powerful thing as an individual that we can do. If we're composting and the people in our family see us composting, they're likely to think that it's not as strange or crazy. You know what I mean? If we put LED lights in our house and we tell them it doesn't generate heat, it's more effective with electricity, they will think that that's just the norm. So demonstrating these behaviors is important. Okay. So that's a little bit about us. Notice I put Ashley's email at the end and not my own. I thought that was a nice touch. She really appreciated that. All right, so can you put on the other presentation for me?
Sure thing.
Okay, so that's just a brief who and what, right? I've lived in Florida my whole life. I spent a lot of my formative years in a very, very small town called LaBelle. By a show of hands, who here's ever been to LaBelle? Yay! Way more people than can name the protozoan.
Oh, that hurt.
I know.
That really stung. Oh,
So
man.
LaBelle is super cool. It's so small. It's got 3 stoplights and 2 of them blink. So it's a very small town with a lot of outdoors, and so that's where I spent my formative years. And I think it's important that we have the opportunity to climb trees, flip rocks, get wet, and really physically interact with the environment. It's not easy. So when we get kids out on field trips now, we notice a lot of times that many of the kids have never been out on a boat, or maybe they've never hiked the woods. They live in a really rural community. Some of these kids don't have a grandma with a farm. For me, I had a grandma with a farm. So there was cows, chickens, goats, and things like that. And I think that that's important to understand those things. But if you don't have that attachment to the environment, you don't know where your food comes, you've never interacted with an animal that wasn't domesticated like a cat or a dog, then it's hard to value the environment. And that's the biggest thing that I'm trying to do, is create value in the environment. I want people to love it as much as I do. And that's not always easy. One of the ways that we can help is through interpretation. Okay. So, raise your hands. What's interpretation? Oh, not so many this time. All right, it's like protozoan. All right, go on. Nobody knows what interpretation is? Showing? You didn't raise your hand. You.
Showing.
Showing. Okay, it's also that lady that stands up at the front and signals what the person's talking about, right? Interpretation. Okay, that's the same kind of thing. It's a language, right? We're interpreting data or information and converting it for the layperson. Have any of you ever talked to a grandchild about technology? I talked to my 8-year-old and it's already like this, so I know that some of you guys gotta be able to relate. He can do stuff with the computer that I can't. He can teach me some of that stuff, but it's important, right? So he's able to take a harder concept and say, no, just click on that. Okay, thank you, I appreciate that. So that's what interpretation is. You're taking a ton of data and you're synthesizing it for your audience. So, with that, let's dive in. So who's your audience? For most of you, family. They're the ones that are going to listen to your anecdotes every time you're walking around. Trust me, my son has heard all of them. I'll stop what we're doing to look at one of those bull ants with the fur on it, because I'm like, oh my God, this is the coolest thing ever. And he's like, that looks like it bites real hard. Let me tell you about the bite. Come on over here. It's really cool. So knowing your audience is important. I've been on guided hikes before where people are super technical. Great. I'm not super technically minded. I don't know everything. I am still a layperson in many senses of the word. So what I want is for people to take the information and make it super consumable, right? We're used to being able to click on something online and see a meme. It's all conveyed in one sentence, or a picture's worth 1,000 words. So you gotta synthesize it in a way that people can absorb it. Don't make the mistake of thinking that people are like you. They're not. Some of them will be lifelong learners, sure, but some of them won't be. Some of them are only hiking because they're down from Ohio and their wife made them. So, how do we reach that person? How about a funny anecdote, right? I've got one of my board members that calls everything a dingle something. So if someone asks, oh, what's that? It's a dingleberry bush. And he waits because they're pretty sure that he's lying, but they're not 100% certain. So they'll kind of wait for a minute and nod. He's waiting because he's like, no, they're going to internalize that. Forever, that's going to be the dingleberry bush. But it's definitely important to know who your audience is. And I would say 90 to 99% of the time, it's going to be just an average person. Typically, we are the ones that are walking around with all the Jeopardy knowledge in our head, ready to take a category for 800 and bet it all on something related to the environment, right? And that's because we're interested in the environment. So what we want to do is then find the most interesting parts of it and then share that. Okay? So subject. Well, I would challenge you. I know a lot of us are here, obviously, for water quality, for the harbor, for watershed, for the way that water is the lifeblood of everything that we do. But to tell the story of water, you got to tell the story of what it interacts with, how it impacts us, how it shapes the world around it, literally, right? And these are a lot of ways that you can do that. So if your interest happens to be zoology, then you'll know more about how the animals interact with water, and that's how you can help to tell your story. If you're a bug person, entomology. What kind of bugs live in the water? Is there seasons to it? I know mosquitoes lay their eggs right on the edge of water. If I want to learn about mosquitoes, I could easily tie it into water. But this is lots of ways to look at the same thing. So these are ways to do interpretation. I happen to use all of them. So I'll use a little bit here and a little bit there. Some sites lend themselves more to a historical or cultural reading. For instance, Bayshore Live Oak Park, which is right across the bridge there, has a sign telling you that they excavated a mound to pave the road that's there. And now all that's left is the sign saying that they did it. That's an interesting site to talk about a cultural or historical reading. What was Punta Gorda like 100 years ago? What was it like when it was settled? Who was the first person here? There's an interesting history. And that part's one of the ones that you can easily tie in. Of course, you can talk about the history of the area at any part, but some of them lend themselves to these subjects more than others. Okay, and there's no reason that you have to do one or the other, but also if your strength is hydrology, then go with your strength, right? Because that's what the interpretation is. It's seeing it through your lens. Okay? If I took all of you to the same site individually and got a tour from every one of you, they would all be completely different. And that's because you all are completely different. Some of you have purple hair. I love it. Some of you have no hair at all. Okay? But your life, the way that you've lived, your experiences, your professions, your interests will literally color everything that you see and do, whether you're aware of it or not. What I would say is I would challenge you to lean into that. Your story is a unique one. Okay? Nobody's lived your life. Nobody has your experience. The way that you see the world is going to be more interesting than a parroting of my own views. I know how I see the world. I don't like that guy's perspective anyways. But yours might be interesting. The way that you grew up and the way that you see the world, the things that you prioritize, the things that have the most importance to you are going to be different. And that is what I'm going to find interesting. So, when we talk about interpretation, interpretation is data seen through the lens of you as the interpreter. Okay, so personal experience. What's my personal experience? It's a lot of weird stuff. This is Florida's Fabulous Reptiles and Amphibians. It's a book. Has anyone ever seen this book? So I can tell you anything I want. Good. So my dad is actually in this book. When I grew up, I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. I told everyone, oh, you gotta see this book. My dad's in it. The reason he was in it is because at the time we lived in Miami, and someone had called 911 because there was an animal living under their trailer. They thought local cats, dogs, raccoons were missing. Now over here we think, oh, coyotes, right? They eat the cats, they eat the dogs. Something's living under that trailer eating them. Well, it turns out there was a big snake, giant python. This was before Hurricane Andrew, so Hurricane Andrew is not the only reason there's pythons in the Everglades. Okay? To get the python out from underneath the trailer, a guy that's a big herper, which is what you would call someone who's interested in reptiles, crawled under the trailer with a rope tied around his feet. And when he got there, it turned out there was a well under the trailer. He looked into the well, and there was a snake at the bottom. So he said, well, I guess I gotta go grab him. So they lowered him down to that well. What do you think happened?
The snake grabbed him.
They kind of hugged, right? So he grabs the snake grabs him right back. What happens is he eventually does get pulled up to the top. I wouldn't recommend anyone do that. If the snake had decided to squeeze a little bit harder or push against the walls, he would have never got him out, no matter how much he pulled. Luckily, the way this story ends is they were able to pull the gentleman out with the snake. Okay, the next day it was in the paper. Photos everywhere. It was featured on an episode of Rescue 911. Does anyone remember Rescue 911? It came on right after Cops. Come on, it was back to back, you couldn't go wrong. So that photo became kind of infamous, and it's in this book. And so the whole time growing up, I had this prideful reaction to this book with a picture of my dad in it. My house was in the background. That was Miami where I was living. So this is my background. This is a horny toad. Yeah, he is a lizard. So I caught one of these when I was 7 out in Texas. It was one of the most formative environmental moments of my life. I caught a baby dragon. They have some unique capabilities. When a predator comes for this baby dragon, he has a defense mechanism where he will squirt something at that predator from his eyes. It's blood. Ooh, I know, but really freaking cool. Luckily, I didn't get sprayed with blood because I'm like a Disney princess. He must have just sensed that I was goodness. So I picked him up and touched him and released him, and I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. This over here is, I believe, a sundew. Now, I'm the son of a botanist that runs a carnivorous plant nursery, and I think that's the only one I can identify. Don't tell him. I got Venus flytraps in my back pocket just in case. That's one I can definitely name. But I grew up with him all over the place, inspecting fields, bogs, marshes, crawling around, and just all kinds of stuff, to see these things in their natural environment. So these are some of the things that would be those color panels on my kaleidoscope, right? No matter how much I would try not to, these are just going to come up from time to time when I'm talking, when I'm doing interpretation, because these are my personal experiences. So if you go on a hike with me, I'm probably going to mention reptiles. I'm not a huge bug guy, so I'm not going to be a huge entomologist presenter. But I'll give you one hell of a guided walk, and that's what's important. I will do a guided walk that will entertain you, will have you invigorated, will make you hopeful, and you'll probably know way too much about reptiles. Okay, so here is the Charlotte Flatwoods. So this is one of the local parks that I do a guided hike at. It's a really cool park. Has anyone ever been there? Okay. Okay, perfect. This is a really cool park. When I get there, I immediately know that I've got several different categories to talk about. Remember, we've mentioned you could do a historical or a cultural. There's lots of different ways to kind of use the information that's around you. One, when I get to this park, there's a big sign at the entrance that tells me how the park was made. Before anyone arrives, I read the sign. They're going to think I'm a genius. They're going to think I'm some historical know-it-all. The reality is I just read the sign. It tells me how the park came to be, how many acres it is. Super cool, right? This is located next to a dome. It's part of the 2020 program. So this was mitigation. This is completely man-made too. So it's remarkable to be able to tell people that. It's high on one side and low on the other side. So as we hike, we will go through a succession of environments, which is really cool. I've also been on hikes that are specifically inventory. There's dirt, that's bladed grass, pine tree, bird. I'm not a huge tell me everything that walks in front of you kind of person. I want to be told a story. I want to see how it interconnects. But this is important too. This is a beautiful park. But the last hike I did, probably the most remarkable thing, is the second I got to this location, 2 bald eagles went overhead, calling out to each other, fussing about stuff. I'm certain that one of them forgot something at the grocery and the other one had to go back. And so they were very frustrated. But they were a couple of birds. They were chatting to each other and they were flying around where I could see them. This was a really remarkable sighting. So even though I'm not going to name everything that I walk past and inventory the park, I'm going to take advantage of that, right? If I see a bald eagle going over, if I see an alligator on the bank, if a snake slithers out and I know he's going to be gone in just 2 seconds, I take that opportunity, okay? Hydrological. This is important too. Talking about how water shapes even the land. So I mentioned to you before that there was 2 sides to the park, a high side and a low side. Well, the environments in those sides are completely different. What grows in a bog or a marsh is completely different from what grows in just the ground. So it's neat to talk about how water impacts the environment around you. So even if you're on dry land, water should be a part of what you're talking about. Going back to, what is it, Bayshore? So Bayshore Live Oak Park. This is a tough hike because it's basically a sidewalk going through some lawn with a couple oak trees. Not super environmental. It doesn't feel really wild. It feels very constructed and man-made. Like if you were walking through your neighborhood, or if you lived in a gated community or something like that. It's just, there's not a lot there. But there's some interesting things there. When I was walking there, I found a spot where there's a small bridge that goes over a little nothing of water. And I thought, oh, that's awesome. No one else thought so, but I thought it was really cool. The reason being, this was where fresh water was leaving dry land and entering the salt harbor. That's super important. Okay, we lose a ton of our fresh water to salt. As soon as it makes it to the shore, it's lost. We want that water on the land, slowly seeping into our aquifers. So having that cool little spot, no one else is probably going to notice it. But I was all over. I was like, oh, this gives me an opportunity to tell this story. Okay, sidewalks. I don't want to talk about that. But they've got a really cool lizard that lives in that park that shouldn't. It's an invasive rockagama.
I got one in my yard.
Yeah, so it gives me an opportunity then to talk about invasives, right? They're gonna see one of these, and I'll tell them, he flew in at the local airport. They'll be like, what? Joking, right? But he's an African rock gummo, so he was definitely released here by someone. And the colorations let me know what gender is, right? A male peacock is colorful. So what do you think this is? That's definitely a male lizard. I can tell because he's so flashy. And I'll take an opportunity to point to someone in my group and be like this fella, right? And everyone will laugh, oh, it's a good time. But it's important to keep it going, right? Give them the information, keep it fun, and find a way to interpret a site to add value. So even though it's just a sidewalk through an oak-lined pathway, I can find things to talk about. There's mangrove trees. There's strangler fig that's completely swallowing one of the oak trees that's there. There's these invasive animals, and if you go to the pier, guess what? You can see a lot of birds. They like to perch right on the side. So I got a ton of stuff to talk about, including the water. Babcock Webb Wildlife Management Area. 395 acres, man-made. It's a beautiful park. Lots of cool stuff there. I'm gonna ask you to raise your hand. Looking at this image, what's the first thing that you would talk about? Thank you. Looking at this image, what would be the first thing that you would talk about to someone if you were taking them through a hike of this property? You in the back.
That the lily pads are a necessity, that they help with the shoreline, help protect it,
Super cool. That's a great one.
feed the fish.
All right. Anyone else? Hands up. There's no wrong answers.
What'd she say?
I said, looking at this. Oh, she said that the lily pads are important, that they play a biological function of helping to preserve the coastline, filter the water, things like that. But I'm saying if I'm walking through here with a group and say you guys are the ones leading that group, what's the first thing that your personal lens is going to tell you to talk about?
The water, where it comes from, where it goes.
Yeah, I think that's probably one. It takes up the biggest frame of the photo besides the sky. So this property is basically got a ton of wetlands. If you're driving by on the interstate, you see that immediately. So if you go in here, know something about the wetlands, right? Know something about the water. Whatever the primary feature is there, you definitely can't ignore it. If you're out on the ocean in a boat, you're definitely not gonna avoid talking about the ocean, right? It has to come up. So that's something interesting right there. What I wanna do now is give you guys an activity. So I'm gonna break you into groups of 3 or 4 depending on how you're sitting. I'm gonna pass something out. What I want you to do is describe what's on the flyer to the other people in your group without saying its name. Simple enough, right? So don't share the images with your partner. You're gonna pick one on the other side. You're gonna describe it to you so you can figure it out. Your partner's gonna be right there. Can I get you 3 together? Don't share the images with them. You guys can be partners. Okay, don't share the images with them. You can do it. I got faith. You 3. Okay, take turns. 3 of you. Don't share the images, okay? Let her read it now. Alright. Nope. Just in Charlotte County. It's off of 41 right actually split into two.
South, down,
There we go.
what is it?
Okay, guys, again, don't show the images to your partners. I want you to describe.
Which one?
You can pick anything you want.
Let's make this three.
He's got it.
Yes. So there's a bunch of images. Pick one that you like, and you got to get them to guess it without saying the name of what it is. Okay, this is going to tax your interpretation skills.
How much to go into it, because I know you're gonna hit it right away. Let's start, I guess, with a reptile that's endangered or protected. It's native to Florida. It's unusual because of its coloration and its size.
Is it too easy?
It's unusual because it's docile.
Can't use the name of it.
I'm trying to think of what else. Coloration, size, and it being docile is what this reptile is very quickly. It gets bad press because of some old crappy Bible.
What snake you're talking about?
And habitat for bald eagles.
Which Florida snake that we've been learning about is large, docile, and has a great color.
Oh, okay, yeah, the indigo.
That's right, that's what I was getting, the indigo snake. You wanna try one?
Okay. I am a plant.
Okay.
I am mobile. Although I don't walk, but people say I look as though I'm walking.
The mangroves.
Specifically, I haven't been out in the sun, but it looks like maybe I have.
Mangroves. There you go. Okay. Very good, very good.
A large animal.
Part of the coalition.
Live and very prolific.
That's a fun little card.
Yeah,
Hunt them.
yeah.
I mean, that's not.
It's like a bingo card to hand it out to kids as you head out on a trip and see if they can find them all.
I'd like to steal one of these cards from them because when we do our walks at Fast.web, we see all of them.
These are your major species. Yeah. And of course, we got a discussion on that.
I think we're also hunting the hawks.
Oh, look at that. Coreopsis is there. How many times do we hear Coreopsis?
I know.
Take it. So if they take out too many, they'll close down. They won't be hunting the next year. So it's very important for them to manage that the correct